Yogis. This is Nicole with Breakfast to Cindy for Just the Tip Tuesday. So our posture this week is Urdhva Dhanurasana, which is a very big back bend. So it's also called wheel pose. So if you're going to practice this, I would definitely recommend that you are warmed up for back bending, heart opening, also like deep stretch for your hip flexors too, so the fronts of your thighs and like the front of your groin. So definitely be a little bit warmed up, maybe do a couple of sun salutation B or sun salutation C to really get into the hamstrings, or maybe this is something you do later in your practice altogether. So I'm going to give you some modifications on how to get into this posture and some tips and tricks. So you're going to need 2 blocks if you want to join along with what we've got going today, okay? All right, so make sure you got a nice mat to practice on, something that's sticky or like a firm surface so that your feet aren't going to slide. You can always have socks on and go for the slidey feet effect. That's pretty advanced, and we're not going to do that today, okay? So I'll show you the full expression of wheel pose, and then we'll get into some different variations that you can do to modify it, okay? So you start lying on your back, okay? Your knees point up towards the sky, feet are about hip width distance apart, hands come by your ears. Notice my fingertips are pointing towards my shoulders. You can also point your fingertips outwards a little bit if that's more comfortable for your wrist, okay? So my elbows are pointing up towards the sky. I'm gonna start to tuck my tailbone and I'll lift my hips. I'm gonna do it a little fast and then I'll do it slow. So I'm gonna tuck my tailbone, lift my hips. At the same time, the weight goes into my shoulders. Then I'm gonna press into my palms and lift my shoulders off the ground. Just kind of repositioning my feet and breathing here. So think about stretching your chest forward, reaching your tailbone towards your knees, and then to come out and the elbows, tuck your chin into your chest, slowly lower the shoulders down, then the tailbone back down towards the ground. Okay? So that's the full expression. And then you can start to play with that. You can start to walk your hands and feet closer together if you want, or you can walk your feet further out and just kind of mess around with that. So I'll show you maybe a slower way to get into it. When you get up, or as you're pushing your hands into the ground to lift your shoulders off the mat, there's a little bit of a tuck to the chin, okay? So hands right here by the ears, elbows point up. I start to lift my hips, my chin starts to move towards my chest, and then as I push down, I find an extension of my cervical spine, and I drop my head back, okay? So you can always walk your feet out, work on straightening your legs. You can walk your feet towards your hands, and just kind of play around with that. Okay, so so that can be a pretty challenging posture for many of us. So especially if our chest isn't open, like if we have limited mobility in our shoulders, that can be a difficult posture to come across, okay? Also, it takes a lot of mobility of your wrists, and it puts a lot of pressure on your wrist joint. So if that's something that you're dealing with, then I'm gonna give you this option to have 2 blocks. Or maybe you have like 2 really large books, like a Harry Potter book. You want them to be the same level though, so you have to have like 2 versions, or 2 copies of the Order of the Phoenix, obviously. I believe that's the thickest one. So you could set your 2 copies of Harry Potter right here. I know Brittany will love that. And you can place your hands on the blocks. So as I come to lay down, my head is right in between the blocks, okay? Probably just the top of my head in between the blocks, okay? It doesn't need to be like right next to my ears, okay? So you can put your hands on your blocks. You can see my fingertips are pointed down towards the ground, okay? And then the top part of my palm comes on top of the wrist, okay? So setting yourself up so you're comfortable. Notice nothing changes from the lower body, right? Everything is exactly the same. My knees are bent, my feet are planted firmly on the ground, my toes are pointing forward, okay? So now I'm gonna press down as I lift my hips up, press down into my heels, then I'm gonna push into my palms and lift my shoulders off the mat. So this asks a little bit less of us on mobility of the upper body and the wrists. You come down just the same way, tuck your chin into your chest, slowly lower down, okay? So that's a really great way to start to get into the pose. It also requires a little less upper body strength. So if you know you struggle with getting that little push off, this can be a really good way to start to move into this pose and start to build up that strength, okay? All right, so one more thing for, just kicks. If you've got your wheel pose down and you just want to add some variation to it, you can try to do wheel pose with a block in between your legs, okay? So this is just going to engage the inner thighs a little bit more. It's just going to add a little bit more of a challenge. It also helps engage your butt a lot more, so it really takes a lot of the pressure out of the low back, because if we're using our muscles, then we're not straining as much, okay? So it's the exact same setup, okay? You might notice it's a little harder to lift up because you're really focusing on keeping the knees in line with your hips and really keeping the block in place, okay? So you might just kind of want to start with a bridge variation to kind of see what that feels like. Like, yep, I got that, I can do it. Hands come by your shoulders. Fingertips point towards your shoulders. Press down into your heels, lift your hips. Press down into your palms, lift your shoulders. Okay, so you can see I don't lift as high this time around because I'm really focusing on squeezing the block. And then you can even walk your legs out, straightening the legs. Walk them back in. And slowly lower back down. Bring the knees in, take that block out. And there you go. All right. One more thing you can do to play around with this, okay? So if you are very back bendy, some of us are just born that way, you can take your Urdhva Dhanurasana to a wall. So I don't have the best example of a wall because my couch, the back of my couch is slanted, but I'm gonna do my best, okay? So you're gonna start with your hands close to the wall. You don't want to be like fingertips to wall or head on top of the wall. You want to give yourself some space to kind of pick up off the ground, okay? So you'll come to lay down. You pop up the exact same way, okay? And then you'll start to walk towards your wall. So feet towards hands, hands towards wall, until you can press your chest up against the wall and really focusing on opening up through the heart. Maybe the feet come closer to your hands. And then starting to walk away and slowly lowering down. Okay, so that can be another way you can just start to get even more back bendy. Trying to get your feet closer and closer to your hands if that's a way that you'd like to deepen the posture for yourself. Okay? All right, I think we covered a lot today. So have fun playing around with your wheel pose in class this week or on your own. Make sure you're warmed up. Have a great week. See you next week. Bye.